Hello and welcome to my Mythic Grong tank guide, and on this one I am going to be specifically focusing on the Brewmaster tank. However, I will be talking about things quite generally, so you will find that whatever I talk about here will also apply to any tank that you use. Grong itself can be a fairly tricky fight the first couple of goes. Essentially it stays the same. There are a few added mechanics that you need to be aware of. The damage output is a lot higher, which means your healers have to work even harder, and your DPS also need to make sure that they get their interrupts off correctly and you don't overlap to ensure that you don't miss any of the interrupts. So onto the fight itself then, it is fairly self-explanatory. What you're going to want to do is pull the boss and tank him pretty much where he stands. Dependent on how lucky you are, you could end up tanking Grong in the exact same position for the entire fight. The only real reason why you would want to move him is if any of the two adds that spawn, which is one of the first differences between Mythic and Heroic, are close to him, then you are going to want to move the boss, because if that add dies close to Grong, his energy will jump up massively and that tantrum is going to hit a lot harder. So as you can see, I am currently tanking the boss and I am the main tank on this fight, and I am going to use any defensive cooldown, mitigate as much damage as possible throughout that. Just here then you can see that the abilities are going to be coming in from Grong. Now what you need to do in the Mythic version of this is you're going to want to ensure that you take the boss off each other after every single ability. We typically found that if we missed one, we might get away with it, but the healers have to work a lot harder than they need to. So what you will have seen just then was the boss used his first ability and the second tank then taunted him off me. As soon as this bestial smash goes, you'll then see me take the boss back off him. I will then get hit with ability and then Grong will pick me up to be thrown. At this point, somebody in the raid will get marked and they need to move away from the rest of the raid, because the raid will take damage from you if you are within there. So you need them to move away. Now, as you saw there, I got feared, and that's because what I was finding more often than not on this fight was that the DPS would just run straight back into the pack as soon as they've moved away from the ability. If they do this and leave you alone, then when that ferocious roar goes off, which it always does after the first throw, you'll find yourself getting feared, and more than likely the other tank will as well. So ideally what you need to happen is you need the DPS to stay fairly close by to you after they've been thrown, and then for them to run back with you to ensure that you don't get feared. The two adds that you will have seen spawn just a minute ago, if I go back, just here, as you can see, they have spawned just here. Now, for me, this was a bit risky. I didn't want this one here to die so close to the boss, so I did ask the second tank to move Grong just away from him a little bit, because like I said, if that tank, if that ad dies close by, then what you'll see is Grong's rage go up massively and the tantrum will hit a lot harder. So what you will see in just a minute is the tank decides to move him across just there. That is more than enough so that the ad dying doesn't affect Grong. As you can see here, I've been feared because the DPS ran away, and it's all about just getting back close to him. Now, you will want your DPS and your healers to make sure that they are interrupting every cast from the ads, because again, as soon as that cast goes off, Grong's energy jumps up massively. Just here you can see that the next set of abilities have come about, and the other tank is about to be thrown. The tank, Grong's energy is around 50 energy, as you can see here on my weak aura. Now this is the perfect time to use the orb. One of the other differences on Mythic is that the orbs don't last as long on the floor, so you ideally need to pick them up as quickly as possible, and the person that is holding the orb takes a massive amount of damage, so the healers need to keep their eye on them, because generally speaking, if they die whilst holding the orb, that's it, it will be a wipe. Use the orb during the throw. Grong will do tantrum and will cancel the throw. Tantrum the first time round doesn't take too much damage if you get it around the 50 to 51% mark. Generally find as a Brewmaster, you can take that all day long. Anything higher than that, you want to start rotating your defensive cooldowns. Here you can see that I'm main tanking again, keeping up my guard talent, which I always use when tanking Grong, because it just mitigates so much damage, it's ridiculous. Here, I'm getting thrown again. As a tank, what you need to be doing is monitoring your health. So I can see here that my health was fluctuating quite a bit. I am already at heavy stagger. I didn't get a chance to purify that before he picked me up. So you need to be vocal and you need to be calling out for a cooldown. Be specific as well with which cooldown you want so you don't get healers wasting them, because it really helps, because you do take a lot of damage when landing and it can kill you. So as you can see here, I get 2 cooldowns put on me for some reason, and I'm straight back in, using the Chi Torpedo, dodging the AoE effect on the floor, and letting the second tank carry on as normal. To be fair, that is pretty much the fight as a whole. It is a rinse and repeat. It took us around, I think it took us about 20 pulls in total to get this down the first time. This is actually our second kill that you're watching, and this tank that I'm with, we have 2 Brewmasters. He was a new tank to the guild and he'd never done this before, so it wasn't a one shot by any means, and we had to have a couple of pulls at this. As I skip forward then, you can see this repeating over and over again. And it's roughly when he gets to around 40%, I think, that we used Bloodlust. Again, you can see me getting thrown. Cocoon goes out on me, and it's all about getting back to the boss as quickly as possible and letting the second tank carry on. The key thing for tanks to focus on really here, you can see 40% we used Bloodlust, popped some personals to dodge that tantrum as best as possible. And then you just go ham on the boss with DPS. Again, swapping after every ability. I think if you miss one, you're probably okay, dependent on which ability it is. But generally speaking, you want to make sure that you get every single taunt off correctly. And you will find that this boss goes down fairly easily. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. As you can see here, the ads move very, very close. So we decide to move Grong because we needed to. The other thing to note as well is if Grong does touch the flames on the ground, he will gain energy as well. So you need to get him off that as quickly as possible. You can go the entire fight without having to move Grong at all. It just all depends on RNG. Yet again, more RNG in the game on where those ads spawn. But generally speaking, you would only move him once. I've never had to move him twice. You can move him back to the position, but our DPS and healers just move to this, observe the situation, and manage to keep us up. As you can see there, we let the energy on Grong get up to 77, and he did hit a lot harder, but we still managed to heal through it. Your healers need to be setting a rotation for their cooldowns on Tranquility, Mercy, like the Aura and things like that. I'd definitely recommend having a note made so everyone knows who's interrupting in which order and which healer is going to be using their cooldowns. It wasn't the cleanest kill, like I said. This is the first time that we tanked this with some new people. We've had some problems with the roster for a mythic raiding, so I do actually die in this fight, but I get combat resed and we managed to see off the boss fairly easily with most of the raid still alive. No loot though. Six mythic bosses and still no loot, but yeah. So that is the tanking guide. It's quite straightforward. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like on the video. Let me know what you think of this boss and any of the others in Mythic Dazaralor. And I will be putting some more tank guides later in the expansion as I keep getting them down. I've got Jade Fire 1 coming up very, very soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.